If you have your Bibles with you, go ahead and open with me to Revelation chapter 22. Revelation 22. It's the very last book of the Bible. If you have any other books, please see me later. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the television show Lost. It was on for about 6 seasons from 2004 to 2010. I used to have some friends who were just absolutely obsessed with Lost. Now, Lost is a show that's about a plane that crashes on an unknown island, and then there are these plane crash survivors who are doing their best to get off of this lost island. Now, for whatever reason, I honestly can't explain why, I had a really hard time getting into Lost. It wasn't really my thing. I tried the first 4 or 5 episodes, but just never really found myself connecting with it. But I had some friends who were telling me how much they just loved Lost. Every time there was an episode, it's all they wanted to talk about. They couldn't wait until, it was time for another Lost episode. That was their thing. And so, they kept telling me, you really have to try it again. You really have to get into it. It is so good. And I would try it. It just didn't really do anything for me. So during the final season, when they had finally announced, okay, this is going to be the last season of Lost, I told one of my friends, I said, all right, now that I know it's going to be the last season, once this season's over, maybe we can start with you, I'll borrow your copies of the DVDs, and I'll give it a shot. And he said that'll be fine. So middle of May 2010, the last episode of Lost airs, and then, the finale, everything's done. And so I called up my buddy and I asked him, hey, would it be all right with you if I were to borrow your season 1 DVD sometime to give this thing a shot? And he told me, yeah, you can borrow them if you want to, but I don't know if I would recommend it. I don't know if it's worth your time. And I found that to be really strange. I thought he was joking at first, but he was serious. That this show that he just couldn't get enough of, and that he couldn't understand why I didn't get into it, now he's telling me, don't waste your time. So we've gone from, you have to see this is the best thing in the entire world, to, it's okay, I guess. And I just find it interesting that this story that he absolutely loved, all of a sudden, was no longer a story worth telling. What changed? He knew how the story ended. Now that he had seen the ending, I don't actually know how it ended, I never actually found out, but I got from him and a number of people that now that they knew how Lost ended, they didn't feel like it was worth seeing. They didn't feel like it was a story worth telling. See, knowing how the story ends makes all the difference in the world. Another time, I was hanging out with a friend. I watch a lot of TV. October 16th, 2006. It was a Monday night. I was at a friend's house. We were watching the Chicago Bears play the Arizona Cardinals. First half was the worst half of football I've seen in my entire life. The Bears were getting beaten by a team that hadn't won a game all year, and they were losing 20-0. They had something like 3 first downs in the entire half. Now, I don't mean to, try to predict things that I can't control, but I feel like I could get 3 first downs in an entire half. Alright? So this was just the absolute worst football game I've ever seen. And so it's halftime, and so my buddy and I are deciding, what else do we want to do? Because we know we don't want to see the second half. If the first half is this bad, how bad is the second half going to be? And so we're deciding what we want to do, what we're going to end up doing with the rest of the night. And as we're about to head out to grab something to eat, he asks me, he goes, I'm just curious, how do you think the game's going to end? And I told him, I was like, I know this sounds strange, alright? But I just have this feeling that the Bears are going to come back. And he goes, it's weird. I have that feeling too. We didn't know why. We didn't have any reason to believe this. We didn't have any, inside information. But there was something inside of us that just knew that the Bears were going to make some sort of comeback. And I won't waste your time with all the details of the game, but suffice it to say, with less than 2 minutes left, the Bears came back and took a 24-23 lead for what NFL Network continues to believe is the 4th best NFL comeback in all history. And the crazy thing is, we almost missed it. We almost skipped it. And yet, there was something inside of us that knew that it was going to happen. That something was going to go down. And it was something that we were going to want to see. And it's interesting, because knowing how the story is going to end makes all the difference in the world. Let me ask you something. How do you think your story is going to end? One day, hopefully many, many years from now, you'll take your last breath, you'll close your eyes, and then what? Maybe you think absolutely nothing happens. There's no heaven, there's no hell, there's no joy, there's no pain, it's just nothing. Game over, the end. No existence, nothing. Maybe you think that somehow you'll have a chance to do life again as a different person or a different species. That it doesn't matter if this life goes really good or really bad. You'll have another shot at it. You'll get your chance. And And so you figure, you know what? If I don't get it this time, eventually I will. Maybe you think that you'll wake up in heaven one day and you'll be able to fly around and sing songs and you won't have anything that you have to do, and it'll just be this perfect bliss that you just can't wait to get into. And that's how you think your story's going to end. Well, let me ask you this. If knowing how the movie ends changes whether or not you'll spend your time watching it, if knowing whether or not the TV show has a worthwhile ending changes whether or not you'll start the series, and if knowing how, at least thinking that you know how the game is going to end, changes whether or not you'll watch it, do you think that knowing how your story ends would change anything about your life right now? Do you think that it would change the way that you respond to hurts and frustrations and setbacks and disappointments? Do you think it would make a difference in terms of the things that you choose to pursue and the lengths that you'll go in order to get them? Do you think that would affect the way that you relate to your friends, your family, your coworkers, or anyone else in your life? If I were to tell you that if you're a follower of Jesus, that the Bible gives you a very clear, very competent, very confident answer as to how your story is going to end, would you want to know it? If you got your Bibles with me, we're going to look at Revelation chapter 22, verses 3 through 5. No longer will there be any curse. The throne of God and of the Lamb will be in the city, and his servants will serve him. They will see his face, and his name will be on their foreheads. There will be no more night. They will not need the light of a lamp or the light of the sun, for the Lord God will give them light, and they will reign forever and ever. All right, we're going to break this text down. We're going to see a couple key things here. But again, I'm just going to kind of give you where we're going, just in case you get lost or if I lose you along the way. Here's what you need to know. It's that knowing how the story ends makes all the difference in the world. Let's look at this first line of, no longer will there be any curse. I'm going to make a statement that's not going to surprise many of you. Our world is broken. That things in our life, the things that you go through, the things that I go through, the stuff that happens to us and around us, it's not the way that it's supposed to be. And many of you have very clear, very keen examples that you can think of ways that you've experienced the brokenness of this world, of the way that someone's hurt you, the way that someone's treated you, the way that things never seem to go your way. You want to know why? It's because the world's broken. It's because it's not the way that it's supposed to be. The reason that our world is broken is this. You don't have to turn there now, but early on in the story, Genesis chapter 3, God places these two people in a garden called the Garden of Eden. And he tells them, I want you to do one thing. You can eat the fruit of any tree in this entire garden, but of this one tree, the knowledge of good and evil, I don't want you to eat from it, because if you do, you will bring in all sorts of evil and terror into your world, including death. And yet that's exactly what they did. These people, Adam and Eve, and us as a human race, they were supposed to experience life, but their choice brought in death. They were supposed to experience love, but their choice brought in lust. They were supposed to experience freedom, but their choice brought in addiction. They were supposed to experience peace, but their choice brought in war. They were supposed to experience community, but their choice brought in isolation. And every bad thing that is in our world has come from that choice. And the Bible refers to that choice as the curse. And Revelation tells us that the curse is gone. And that it's gone forever. Many of you have experienced deep results of this curse. I wonder if I were to ask her how many people here with some type of chronic pain, how many responses I would get. Maybe it's a pain in your neck or your hip or your leg or whatever. And some of you have had that pain for years and years, and you don't even remember what life was like without it. Do you know that your pain, whatever that is a result of a curse? And in heaven, the curse is gone. And so is your pain. Some of you have experienced some type of trauma, some type of emotional pain that you've been carrying with you for years. Someone hurt you, abused you, did something to you, betrayed you that they were never supposed to do. And you've had that pain as a weight on your neck and a weight on your soul for as long as you can remember. Guess what? That pain was a result of the curse. And in heaven, the curse is gone. And so is your pain. Some of you have experienced the pain of addiction, whether it's to drugs or alcohol or food or pornography or anything else. And you know that addiction, well, it feels like you have this itch that no keeps growing. Guess what? Addiction is the result of two things. First of all, it is the result of your own choices. But it's also a result of a curse. And in heaven, the curse is gone. And you're set free from your addiction. Everything that you have in your life that is somehow managing to steal your joy, that is somehow managing to keep you from experiencing the life that you're supposed to experience, guess what, folks? It's a result of the curse. And in heaven, the curse is gone. Is anyone looking forward to that day? See, knowing how the story ends makes all the difference in the world. Verse 3. The throne of God and of the Lamb will be in the city, and his servants will serve him. All right, here's what we need to talk about. We have ideas in our culture about what heaven is going to be like, and they are ideas that we believe firmly, but I honestly can't even tell you where we get them from. Some of you, when you think of heaven, you think of this idea as floating spirits sitting on clouds, singing songs, playing harps, right? I don't know where these ideas come from, but I just need you to look at this sentence again with me, and I want you to notice three words. Throne, city, and servants. This is a physical throne with physical people in a physical city. And so in heaven, you are a physical person with a physical body. And the Bible says you're going to have a perfect body, so you're probably going to be pretty hot, right? You gotta get this idea that, oh, I'm going to be some like floating spirit that's like walking through walls. Good luck. If I were to ask you, though, what would you really love to be able to do in heaven? What would you really love to do like with your life right now? Some of you might have this answer of, I would just love to have nothing to do. If I had no bills to pay, no kids to pick up, and no doctor's appointments to go to, and no groceries to get, I would finally be happy. I would finally have what I'm looking for. Let me ask you, how long do you think you'd be happy for? Yeah, you'd enjoy that restfulness for a while. You'd enjoy having, that freedom and nothing to do. But how long would it take before the restfulness turned into restlessness? Parents, how many of you get absolutely sick and tired of your kids telling you that you're bored, or that they're bored? Go do something. And I think that people think that, oh, I can't wait till I have a point on it where I have absolutely nothing to do. Then I'll be happy. I don't think that that's the case. I have to tell you, even if you think that's what you're looking for, it's not, and here's why. One of my least favorite places to be in the entire world is the doctor's office waiting room. I hate waiting in doctor's office waiting rooms. I'll tell you why. I'm too young to read the newspaper. I'm too straight to read Martha Stewart Living. And according to the security guard, I'm too old to play with the toys. Sure. And so what do when I'm in a doctor's office waiting room? I sit there and do nothing. Do you know what the feeling of sitting there and doing nothing is called? Boredom. And so some of you are convinced that what you really want in life is to be bored. Let me tell you what you really want. Here's what your heart really desires. It's that you would have something to do with your life that you're good at. That you would have the resources that you need in order to do it. And that you would know that what you're doing is making a real difference. And that it counts for something. The verse that we just read, it clearly describes people doing their jobs. And so in heaven, you're going to have a job. Now, I don't know what you're going to be doing, but I'm going to tell you three things about it. First of all, you're going to be doing something that you're good at. Second of all, you're going to have what you need in order to do it well. And third of all, you're going to know that it's making a difference because your assignments are coming from and being done for the very best boss in the entire world. Would anyone be okay with living a life like that? See, knowing how the story ends makes all the difference in the world. Verse 4. They will see his face and his name will be on their foreheads. There will be no more night. They will not need the light of a lamp or the light of the sun, for the Lord their God will give them light. Alright, so when I worked at Target, it was fairly common that we would have rotating shifts and rotating projects, meaning that you would be put on a project for a while, and then someone else would be called in to finish it if your shift was either over or you were assigned to do something else. So I worked primarily in the toys and electronics department. Yeah, I got paid for that. Some of you know how much fun I must have had. There was a guy who had started a project at one point, and his job was to clear out an entire shelving unit of toys that were either going to be marked for discount or put in back stock. And then my job was going to be to unload a new pallet of toys on this now empty shelf. So this guy had finished emptying the shelf, and then his shift was about over, so I clocked in, I grabbed my radio, I asked my team lead what I should do. He says, all right, there's a shelf of toys that's been de-shelved, it's completely open, you can do it. I said, all right. And then he says, what I want you to do is there's another pallet of toys that's already there. I want you to take that pallet and unload it on the empty shelf. So I go there, and it seems pretty straightforward. I find the empty shelf, I find the new pallet of toys I'm supposed to start unloading, and I spend the next hour putting the new toys on the shelves. Then my team lead comes by, and he's mad. Oh, he's mad. Because he looks at me and he goes, what are you doing? And I said, I'm putting toys on the shelves. Trying to figure out if this is really supposed to be a difficult question. He goes, no, what are you doing? Still putting toys on shelves. You're putting those toys back on the shelves. See, this guy, the guy who worked for it, had taken them off the shelf and put them on the pallet, and then my team lead had assumed, my boss had assumed, and I had therefore assumed that he'd replaced the pallet of old toys with a pallet of new toys. But instead, I had spent an entire hour of my time putting stuff back on the shelf that he had just taken down. Yeah, that's what happens. And this is why your checkout lines are really long, by the way. One of the great things about heaven is that heaven is a place where everyone's working on the same team, working towards the same goals, with the same motives and the same intensity. There's no, oh my gosh, you just undid what I did. There's no, why are you doing this? Why am I supposed to be doing this? Everybody knows what they're working towards. Everybody knows why they're doing it. There's no fighting, there's no backstabbing, there's no criticism. Everybody's on the same team. Everybody's working towards the same goal. Some people are like, I can't even get my kids to get along for 5 minutes. How is this going to work? I'm thinking heaven's probably a pretty big place. That's how. And you know what it's like to be at your job, to be at your home, and to feel like, even if they don't say this, even if they're not intentionally doing it, that you have people in your life who are working against you. You're trying to take your kids on a vacation, have a good old time with them. They won't stop fighting for 10 minutes. And you're like, guys, we're all on the same team here. Guess what? Heaven is a place where everybody gets it. Everybody's on board. Everybody's working towards the same goal. Anybody looking forward to being a part of something like that? See, knowing how the story ends makes all the difference in the world. Verse 5, and they will reign forever and ever. See, I think the best part about how the story ends is not just what happens, but the fact that it doesn't end. My two best friends from junior high, even in large parts of today, are John and Nate. We were all born within 2 months of each other, and literally since we met in junior high, we went through everything together. Junior high, high school, college, you name it. But as you know, people grow up, people move, people change, you get jobs, you get families, you end up in different places. And so these two guys that I went through every important part of like 10 years of my life with, I haven't been in the same room with both of them in almost 4 years. It stinks. And yeah, we keep in touch on the phone or by email or whatever, but there's just this certain thing inside of me. I mean, maybe you know what this is like, that knows this isn't the way it's supposed to be. This isn't how friendships are supposed to be. This isn't how relationships are supposed to be. We're supposed to be able to be together. We're supposed to be able to do life together. And the fact is that if I were to sit down and you were to stand up, you could probably tell me stories about your life that make my life seem, even my worst days, seem like a joke. That you've had people leave you for, either by their own choice or by other circumstances. That some of your best friends, your relatives, your spouse, you haven't been able to talk to them for years, literally, because they're gone. And it's not the way that it's supposed to be. The best part about how this story ends is that the relationships last forever. That nobody gets old, nobody gets sick, nobody dies. Why? Because getting old and getting sick and dying are a part of what? The curse. And in heaven, the curse is gone. Is anybody looking forward to having a story like that? Is anybody looking forward to knowing that your most meaningful, most deep relationships don't end? See, knowing how the story ends, what does it do? It makes all the difference in the world. I just have to tell you that if you're not a Jesus follower, you're like, man, Steve, I want my story to end that way. That you can have that. That even if you're thinking, Steve, you don't understand. I've done stuff I'm not proud of, and the stuff I am proud of is disgusting. You're ashamed of, that will ever pull you away from His grace. That all that you ever have to do is decide that you want to be a follower of Jesus. And if that's something that you want to learn more about, please come see me afterwards. I would love to have that discussion with you. There's no age requirement. There's no income requirement. There's no, I have to have done this hour please come talk to me. I also want you to know that if you are a Jesus follower, that you don't have to wait until you die for this chapter of your story to start right now. And so you're like, Steve, what do you mean by that? Here's what I mean. You know the Lord's Prayer, we pray that most weeks here, how it goes, may your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I have to tell you that if you're a Jesus follower, that this is both a petition to God, hey, would you do this? And it is a call to action. Here's what I mean. When you pray, Lord, please give me a good day, I'm assuming that you don't just kind of sit there wherever you prayed that prayer for hours and hours, hoping that somehow God turns that into a good day. That you do things that you think are going to lead to you having a good day. And you ask God to partner with you and to bless you as you do that. If you need a job, yes, you pray, Lord, please help me find a job. But I just need to tell you, you probably should do more than that too. You probably should find out who's hiring, find out where you can send in applications, find out where you can send resumes. Because yes, you need a job, and yes, you need God to help you do that. But you also know that you are partnering with God. That it is not solely up to Him to give you a job. You ask God for these things, but you also position yourself towards attaining them. And so when you ask God, may your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, essentially what you are doing is you are asking God to accomplish something here on earth, and you are committing to joining Him in His mission of doing that. See, way back in the garden, Genesis 3, in disobeying God, Adam and Eve allowed their lives to be used as a conduit between hell and our world. All the stuff that was never supposed to be here, their lives were used as a conduit to bring it up to where we are. And yet, when you pray, may your kingdom come and your will be done, when you pray how Jesus tells you to pray, when you live how Jesus tells you to live, what you're doing is you're allowing your life to be used as a conduit to bring what's going on up there down here. Let's talk very, very, very briefly about some characteristics of heaven and how those things might be transported through our lives down here. I need some help here. This is very, very basic, very straightforward. Let me just ask this. Yes or no? Is heaven a place, do you think heaven's a place where people tell the truth? Yes or no? Yes. So how do you bring heaven to earth? Exactly. By being truthful with people. Let me ask you something. Is heaven a place where people are kind to each other? Yes or no? So how do you bring what's going on up there down here? You be kind to people. Is heaven a place where people care about what they do and why they do it? Yes or no? Then how do you bring heaven down here? By caring about what you do and why you do it. Guys, there is so much that God is already doing up there that He greatly desires to do down here. But His only conduit to be able to do it, you want to know what it is? It's you and me. I just need to ask you, do you think that it is possible that the fact that our world is so obsessed with having something to do, somewhere to be, something to keep us entertained, that maybe that obsession that we have with always having something going on is actually a shred of evidence that our world is crying out for someone to bring heaven to earth? Let me ask you this. Do you think that it's possible that God has placed you at your job, or in your family, or in your home, or in your circumstances, whatever they might be, simply so that you might be used by God as a conduit to bring a little piece of heaven into someone else's world? See, knowing how the story ends makes all the difference in the world. Here's the question. The question, if you're a Jesus follower, the question is not, how's your story going to end? The question is not, what do I have to do to get that? If you decided to follow Jesus, you're already there, folks. The question is, when do you want it to begin? Do you want to wait until you die, then you wake up in heaven, and all of a sudden you're in this chapter of the story, or do you want to experience it now? The way that you do it is by every day committing, Lord, may your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, and may you use my life to do it. My job, my family, my house, my friends, whatever, would you use me to bring your kingdom to these people and to those places? God has put His heart in our hands, and He has given us Not just how our story is right now, but how it is going to be, so that we may know with confidence and act with the confidence that knowing how the story ends makes all the difference in the world. Let's pray.